The day I paid off my mother's mortgage, she transferred the deed to my brother without telling me. He deserves security more than you, she claimed. I walked away in silence. But on her 60th birthday, the doorbell rang, and what she saw standing there changed everything. I'm Marcus. I'm 38 now and live in Louisville, Kentucky. I fix heating and air units for a living. It's not exciting, but I make good money and I'm not ashamed of it. I didn't go to college, but I worked my ass off since I was a teenager. I don't have kids and I live alone in a modest house I paid off myself. I've always taken care of myself because no one else ever did. My family? That's where this story begins. I don't have a big family. It was just my mom, my younger brother Corey, and me. My dad walked out when I was 10 and Corey was 6. Mom, Judith, never remarried. She worked at a middle school for years. She made it sound like she sacrificed everything for us, but the truth is, she gave everything to Corey. I was just there. Even as a kid, I felt it. If Corey messed up, she made excuses. If I made a mistake, I got punished or ignored. Corey needs extra love, she'd say. You're stronger, Marcus. You can handle more. That stronger label stuck. What it really meant was I got left alone while Corey was coddled and babied through everything. I started working when I was 15. Mowing lawns, washing cars, working at a local gas station on weekends. By 18, I was paying for most of my own expenses. I moved out at 19. I didn't want to live under that roof anymore. It always felt like I was an outsider in my own home. Meanwhile, Corey? He stayed. He didn't move out until he was 26. No job. No plan. Just lived there, eating mom's food, driving her car, and somehow being praised for trying. I used to try to stay close. Holidays, birthdays. I even helped with things. Fixed her water heater once, paid for a tree to be removed from the backyard when it fell during a storm. Never asked for anything. I just wanted to feel like I still had a place in that family. For years ago, that illusion finally broke. I was doing okay for myself by then. I had steady work and even paid off my house in Fern Creek early. No debt. I had about $80,000 in savings. I'd been with a woman named Amanda for a couple years. Things weren't perfect, but we were stable. Then one Sunday, my mom called me. Her voice was shaking. She said the bank was threatening to foreclose on her house. She was behind on payments. She sounded desperate. Turns out she'd taken out a second mortgage. She said it was to help with house repairs, but later I found out most of it went to help Corey get back on his feet again. Again. She was behind almost 50 grand. She begged me not to let her lose the house. I didn't think twice. I told her I'd handle it. 2 weeks later, I paid the whole thing off. $48,713. I remember standing at the bank counter, wiring the money. I felt good. Not because I wanted praise, but because I thought maybe, just maybe, she'd finally see me, respect me, treat me like more than just the backup plan. She cried when I told her. Said I saved her. Hugged me like she hadn't hugged me in years. I believed, for a moment, that things were changing. They weren't. A few months later, I went to her place to drop off a dryer I'd bought on discount. She said hers had broken down. I pulled into the driveway and saw Corey's car there. Not unusual. He practically lived there again. I heard them arguing from the open kitchen window as I was unloading the dryer. I told you not to say anything. Mom hissed. He should know. Corey snapped back. What if someone else tells him? I froze. My gut told me something was off. I stepped inside and asked what they were talking about. They both froze. Mom gave me this fake surprised look, like I'd caught her stealing. Corey stared at the floor. What's going on? I asked again. My mom sighed and said, we transferred the house to Corey. Just like that. I stood there silent for a moment. She said, it's better this way. He needs it more than you do. I asked her, what are you talking about? I just paid it off. She didn't deny it. She just said, "You're fine, Marcus. You have your life. Corey needs stability. This house gives him that. You don't need it." I turned to Corey. He shrugged and said, "It just made sense." I walked out, didn't say another word, got in my truck and drove off. Nobody called. Nobody checked on me. I didn't go to Thanksgiving. Didn't go to Christmas. I stopped answering texts. Amanda didn't understand why I was so angry. We started drifting. She left a few months later. For almost 2 years, I went silent. Then, last year, I'd heard through an old neighbor that they were throwing a big party for my mom's 60th birthday. Backyard party. Big cake. Catering. DJ. They were expecting a big crowd. That's when I knew. I wasn't done. They thought I'd walked away. But I was planning. They forgot who they were dealing with. I spent months putting together my plan. I wasn't going to scream, or beg, or fight. I was going to take control. Step 1 was buying the 2 lots next to her house. They weren't special. Just run-down rental homes, but they were for sale. I paid cash. No loans. Didn't use my real name either. Created an LLC. No paper trail back to me. Step 2 was building 2 commercial storage units. Not pretty ones. Big, gray, industrial ones. They met every zoning requirement. I checked with city code first. Everything was legal. No one could stop me. Then I rented them out. One to a generator repair business. Loud trucks, diesel fumes, machines running constantly. The other to a vending machine supply company. Forklifts, pallets, constant movement. The noise started around 6 a.m. every day. The smells hit the backyard hard. The lights, bright and harsh, stayed on all night. She filed complaints. Called the city. Sent letters. Nothing worked. Everything was by the book. The party still happened. But it was a mess. Guests parked blocks away. No one could hear the music. People started leaving early. Someone stepped in an oil patch and ruined their shoes. I watched the whole thing from across the street. Rented a black SUV and sat in the back with tinted windows. She didn't know I was there. That wasn't the final blow. I had more coming. I'll stop here for now. But just know what came next. That was the part that made her finally understand exactly what she threw away when she gave Corey the house I paid for. And it all started with a lawsuit. After the failed birthday party, I knew I had her attention. But attention wasn't enough. I wanted her to feel the weight of what she'd done, not just to me, but to herself. It wasn't about the money anymore. It wasn't even about the house. It was about the disrespect. The way she handed over something I paid for like it was hers to give. Like I was just some ATM who got lucky in life and should be fine without thanks. I'd let her believe I was quiet and harmless. That was over. 2 weeks after the party, I filed the lawsuit. My lawyer didn't think we had a strong case at first. Said once she transferred the deed to Corey, and unless I had something in writing that said the payment was a loan, there wasn't much I could do. But I did have something. A year before I paid off the mortgage, she sent me texts. Things like, "If I can't pay you back, I'll leave the house in your name. I hate to ask this of you, but I'll treat it like a loan. You'll get the house if anything happens." I never thought those would matter. But I saved them anyway. Something in me always knew I needed to keep receipts with her. My lawyer changed his tune real fast after seeing those. He filed a claim against Corey and my mother for unjust enrichment. Basically, they used my money to pay off something, then gave the benefit to someone else. In court, that matters. The news hit them like a brick. I didn't tell them. They got served at home. According to a neighbor, Mom nearly fainted when the papers showed up. Corey called me once that night. I let it ring. From there, it turned into chaos. Mom hired a lawyer. Corey did too, even though I knew damn well he couldn't afford it. He worked at a print shop part-time and barely kept a car running. The first court date was a disaster for them. My lawyer laid everything out clean. The texts, the timeline, the wire transfer, even emails where my mom thanked me for saving the house and called the money life-saving help. Their lawyer tried to argue it was a gift. But when the judge asked why the deed was transferred to Corey after I paid it off, and why no one told me, they had nothing. They looked like fools. That was just the start. The case dragged on for almost a year. Each month, they had to show up in court or meet with lawyers. They paid fees, filed documents, tried everything to delay it. I kept my distance. No calls. No texts. Meanwhile, things on their end started falling apart. Corey lost his job. I'm not sure why, don't care. But soon after, I heard from another old neighbor that he moved out of Mom's house and into a crummy apartment off Dixie Highway. She'd kicked him out. That shocked me. After all the coddling, all the sacrifice, she kicked her golden boy out. I found out later she did it because she thought it would help her case. Like if Corey wasn't living there anymore, maybe it would look like the house wasn't really his. Didn't matter. By now I had added 2 more claims. One for emotional distress, another for fraud. They wouldn't go far, but they added pressure. Legal pressure. Financial pressure. Moms started leaving voicemails. At first, they were cold. You're being childish. You have everything. Why are you doing this? Then they turned desperate. Please, Marcus, I'm too old for this. Can we just talk? I never answered. Then, out of nowhere, Corey showed up at my work. I was finishing a job on a rooftop unit in Germantown when I saw him waiting by my truck. He looked rough, skinny, messy hair, bags under his eyes. His clothes didn't fit right. I kept working. When I finally climbed down, he stepped forward. You win, he said. I didn't say a word. He said, I'll sign the house back to Mom if you drop the case. I stared at him. Not to her, I said. To me. His mouth opened, then closed. Like he didn't believe what I just said. That's insane, he muttered. Then we keep going, I told him, and I got in my truck and drove off. 2 days later, I got a call from my lawyer. Papers were signed. Deed transferred. Just like that, the house was legally mine. But I wasn't done. I didn't want to live there. I didn't even want the house. I wanted her to know that every step of this, every inch of that home she clung to, was no longer hers because of what she did. The silence after that was thick. No calls. No messages. She didn't even try anymore. But I had one more move to make. Not because I needed to, but because I could. And on a cold morning in December, I made it. So now the house was mine. Not a cent left on the mortgage, clean title, deed in hand. Corey signed it over through his lawyer, and it was filed 2 weeks later. My mom didn't show up to contest it. Not even a word from her after the transfer. No calls. No letters. Nothing. That silence said everything. I knew what I could have done. I could have sold the place and washed my hands clean. I could have turned it into a rental and made passive income. But I didn't do either of those things. Instead, I did something that made people start talking. I showed up to the house one early Saturday morning with a demo crew. My mom was still living there. And I wasn't there to kick her out. Not yet. I told the crew to start tearing down the fence first. Then the deck. Then the little sunroom she always loved. All legal. All within my rights as the new owner. She ran out the back door screaming, wearing a bathrobe and slippers. What the hell are you doing? She yelled. I looked her in the eye and said, renovating my property. She called the cops. When they showed up, I calmly handed them the deed. This is my house, I said. She's still here as a courtesy. The officer looked embarrassed. Told her there was nothing they could do. She stood there, mouth open, shaking. The same woman who once told me I didn't need security because I was strong, now watching me tear apart the home she clung to. That night, she left. I don't know where she went. I changed the locks the next day. Over the next few weeks, I gutted the place. Not to remodel it, but to erase it. Everything that made it her home? Gone. The rose bushes she planted? dug up. The old family photos she hung in the hallway, tossed. The awful peach-colored wallpaper she used in the kitchen, burned in a trash barrel in the backyard. But the twist came after. Because once the house was empty, I didn't sell it. I donated it. Not to a charity. Not to a church. I donated the house and the entire lot to a local sober living nonprofit, one that helps recovering addicts get off the street. They'd been struggling to find housing for their program. I gave them a fully paid-off property with no liens. My only condition: put 6 beds in it and never let the Judsons, my mom's side of the family, step foot inside again. They agreed. My mother's house, the house she robbed me of, was now a halfway home for 6 strangers with criminal records and broken families. Loud, young, chaotic, and permanent. But that wasn't the real twist. The real twist came when I found out what she'd been doing while I was tearing her life down. She'd been talking to Amanda, my ex. They had kept in touch after the breakup. Amanda had always felt bad about how everything went down, and apparently, my mother was telling her sob stories. She played the victim. Told Amanda I'd turned cruel. Said I was unstable and obsessed with money. Amanda told her she didn't want to get involved. But she did. I found out one night when Amanda called me out of nowhere. Said she was worried about me. That's when it all clicked. She wasn't just calling to check on me. She was calling because my mom had gotten into her head. Tried to plant doubt. Maybe even get her back in my life. Or maybe just use her to mess with me. So I asked Amanda, what did she promise you? She went quiet. Then she said she'd give me the house. That hit me like a punch to the chest. Even after everything, after stealing it from me, giving it to Corey, then losing it through a lawsuit, my mother still tried to trade it off like it was hers. Still tried to give it to someone else who hadn't earned it. Amanda hung up soon after. I blocked her number. Haven't heard from her since. But that was when I knew my mom wasn't just blind. She was dangerous. She had this way of seeing people not as people, but as tools. Corey was the one she babysat to feel needed. I was the one she used when she needed money. Amanda was the backup plan to try and get sympathy through guilt. She never once saw me as a son. Just a resource. And after all that, she still thought she could get the last word. But I wasn't done. Not yet. Because she didn't know who her new neighbors were going to be. She didn't know who her new neighbors were going to be. The sober living house next door? That was just the beginning. I'd kept the industrial storage units going strong. The compressor company had expanded. Now they had trucks coming and going 5 days a week, sometimes on Saturdays. Constant noise, fumes, movement. I even put up a chain-link fence with razor wire to secure the property. The nonprofit I donated the house to? They followed through. 6 recovering addicts moved in. All men. Most had prison records. But they were clean, trying to rebuild. And loud. They weren't bad guys, but they weren't quiet either. The backyard, once full of flowers and wind chimes, now had folding chairs, ashtrays, a busted-up grill, and always noise. That sweet little neighborhood my mom once called peaceful now looked like a construction zone next to a halfway house. I didn't think she'd come back. But about 2 months after she left, I saw her. She was standing across the street in her car, engine running, just staring. I parked my truck behind her and walked up. She jumped when she saw me in her rear view. Rolled down the window. "What happened to you?" she asked. Her voice cracked. I didn't answer. She kept going. "I raised you better than this. You've changed. You're cruel." I leaned in. "You don't get to say that," I told her. "You lost the right the day you gave away what I worked for." She shook her head like I was being dramatic. "You're just angry," she said. "You'll regret this one day." I didn't say anything, just smiled. "Drive away, Mom." And she did. That was the last time I saw her face to face. But not the last she heard from me. 3 weeks later, I mailed her a certified envelope. Inside was a copy of the deed. Not to the house, she knew that was gone, but to the lot across the street. That lot had been empty for years. People in the neighborhood always tried to keep it clean. My mom used to mow the edge of it herself so the weeds didn't blow over. I bought that lot in January, and I sold it in April to a company that ran transitional housing for ex-cons just out of jail. People with ankle monitors. Pearlies. The roughest kind. The company had been searching for a spot for months, but couldn't find one where zoning would approve. But I knew exactly what permits to file, what language to use. With the sober house already there and the storage units nearby, it qualified. They broke ground 2 weeks after the sale. 15 rooms. Shared bathrooms. Minimum staffed. Cheap construction. Directly across the street from where my mother's friends used to park for her garden parties. She showed up at City Hall to protest. Didn't matter. They had the land, the zoning, the permits. Nothing she could do. She called the news, but they didn't bite. Too small a story. That was the final straw for her. One of her old friends called me and said Judith had moved into a studio apartment on the west side, one of those depressing senior complexes near the railroad tracks. From 4 bedrooms and a garden to that. She never saw it coming. And Corey? He got hit, too. Once the lawsuit drained his savings, he stopped answering calls. He owed his lawyer money, burned bridges with friends, and ended up couch surfing for a while. Last I heard, he was living in Elizabethtown with some girl who sells knockoff purses out of her garage. Works at a car wash now. Good. They both got what they deserved. But I did too. And this is the part people don't understand. Revenge doesn't always feel good. Sometimes it leaves you hollow. I stood in front of that gutted house, surrounded by diesel fumes and flashing lights, and felt nothing. No pride. No joy. Just peace. Quiet, cold peace. But here's the truth. They didn't ruin me when they gave that house to Corey. They ruined themselves when they underestimated me. I didn't get revenge to feel better. I did it so they'd never forget who I really was. The one they called too strong to need anything. The one they thought would walk away quietly. And I did walk away. But I took everything with me.